Today we'll get started with Ikigai, what you can be paid for. So in past sessions, this is just to recap what we have been talking about. We had talked about what you love, what you're good at, and today we'll talk about what you can be paid for. So diving directly into that, one thing to understand from the last session that we have had is that what you are good at does not have to directly translate to what the market pays you for. The market will only pay you for what competency you bring in solving a problem for someone else. So if you actually solve a problem for someone, you'll get paid for that. So if you look at it from another perspective, being good is for internal capability and being paid is external validation. And earlier, as I mentioned, the market pays you for if you can reduce somebody's pain, if you can save them some time, if you can increase their revenue or reduce some sort of a risk in the business, or you can clear the outcomes for them. And what you're good at becomes what you can be paid for only when it is aimed at a real problem, packaged as an outcome and trusted by the market. That is what we need to grab our or wrap our head around what you can be paid for. So just taking on three examples, which are very relevant to all our lives. So I'm going to show you that what you're good at, why it often doesn't pay, and why when it does pay, right? So, for example, in the case of listening, if you're good at listening patiently or understanding emotions or making people feel heard, those are good skills to have, but they won't pay because listening does not change an outcome. It doesn't define a problem that being solved, but it can pay you if you pursue something like therapy, providing therapy or coaching or meditation or leading sales discovery sessions. So that's the one example. The other example is, for example, if you're good at giving advice, for example, to friends, and you're good at thoughtful opinions and helping friends think clearly, but it doesn't pay because, all kind of advice, everybody has a lot of advice for everybody else. It's free and abundant. There's no accountability. You don't take any ownership of the outcome of the advice that you provide to somebody. But when it can pay is that if you take on ownership, so you take on a organized advisory role, or you do proper coaching, or you take on consulting. One last example is that if you're good at networking, for example, so you're good at meeting people like myself, remembering names, maybe not so good at that personally, but building rapport. Why it would not help? Because you're not capturing any value in the process. And socializing by itself has no transactional value, but it could pay in a situation where networking matters, for example, in sales, in building partnerships, in building a community, or if you are just plain making a deal. That is the area in which it does pay. So we're trying to make a connection with what you are good at, with what it can pay for. And this is that bridge that establishes the two. And with that being said, I just want to conclude with one statement. You're not paid for what you're good at. That is something very interesting to remember, but you are paid for the problems or the skills you remove for people. Thank you.